And Your Worship, we are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, Council, staff, and, well, no members of the, Ian, welcome, good morning. All right, so our first meeting, yesterday was a great day, a great evening, so some of us are looking a little weary today, but we'll get through it for sure. We'll call this meeting to order. Now I'm going to need some help with some of this land acknowledgement. We begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations Métis and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge the town of Wasaga Beach is located within the boundaries of Territory 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg and the, Madam Clerk?
I believe it's Anishinaabe,
Anishinaabe,
Haudenosaunee,
Haudenosaunee, and the Tyanote Wendat,
Wendat. Correct.
and is the home of many First Nations, Métis and Inuit people as part of the intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for the guidance in all we do. Number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone on council has a pecuniary interest, please say so now, and if not, at any time throughout the meeting, if you feel you do, please let us know. None? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 3, closed session. 3.1 closed session resolved that pursuant to section 239 2B and D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the November 16th 2022 special council meeting will move into closed session to discuss personal matters about the identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations or employee negotiations. Any questions or comments from council? If not, I will ask for a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Ego. All in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll now go in camera.
Your worship, we're live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, good evening and welcome back. So we're coming out of our closed session. A quick rise and report. Council discussed two items in closed session, one to do with staffing issues and the other to do with records management. So we've had those discussions. We've given staff clear instruction, and we're now moving on with our meeting. Item number 5.1 under new business, council meeting phase 3, resolved that council resume meetings of council and committees unrestricted. Any questions or comments on this? Councillor, no? Okay. All right. All right, the
Worship?
mover and a seconder.
Your worship, I believe we missed the 4.1 motions that council confirm the direction provided in closed session pertaining
Thank
to a
you.
staffing matter and to a records management matter.
All right, sorry about that. We'll go back then to 4.1 staffing matter, section 239(2)B and D. The Municipal Act 2001 is amended. The next portion, no, that's not it. Do you want to read that? I'm not seeing it here.
Okay, I see it on my screen. It is resolved that council confirm the direction provided in closed session pertaining to a staffing matter, and that council confirm the direction provided in closed session pertaining to a records management matter.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Mover or seconder? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on back to 5.1. As I indicated, resolved that council resume meetings of council and committee unrestricted. So this is taking the council chambers basically from phase 3 or phase 2 to phase 3, which means the council chambers will be open completely to the public. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Timms. All in favor? Unanimously carried. 5.2, reopening Beach Drive. It is resolved that council directs staff to reopen the report on the requirements involved in reopening Beach Drive. And we have our Director of Public Works, Kevin Lalonde, here today. Kevin, you want to come forward and give us a bit of an update there?
Thank you, Worship. Morning, members of council. So currently, we have submitted an application to Ontario Parks for a works permit, and this permit allows us to access the provincial park boundary to displace and deposit the beach sand back on the beach. It was initiated, however, was put on hold just given the volume and scope of the works that were necessary to relocate that material. There is we estimate about 5,600 cubic meters of material to put back onto the beach, and it's quite significant. And so we did meet with the senior environmental officer with the Ministry of Environment yesterday to go over the scope of the work, and believe we've satisfied her concerns. She needs to communicate through to Ontario Parks and the technician there that issues the permits. And they've indicated to us that they don't have a timeline for a permit issuance at this point, but they should have more information by the end of this week. So we will follow up with them by the end of the week. And provided Mother Nature remains calm for a little bit of time, we probably have about a couple of weeks worth of hauling operations to relocate the material. There's some drainage piping underneath the sand, relocate the architectural block wall and the temporary concrete block wall, as well as relocate some of the fencing and the access control that we do have at some of the limits. But the intent would be to open it up right through to 3rd Street. And then because 1st Street and 2nd Street are currently part of the development blocks in the agreement of purchase and sale, those right-of-ways have been stopped up and closed, so they're not open for vehicular traffic. So the intent would be to clear all of the sand and then open 3rd Street and have that loop through to 3rd Street.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Council, questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Director Lalonde. Understanding that, excuse me, that permit process may take some time for them to provide for us. What is the status currently in regards to the clearance of the road? Have we cleared all the sand to 1st Street? Thank you.
No, currently, I would say the limits have been extended through to Playland parking lot. So there's still a considerable way to go before we get to 1st Street. And there's very limited opportunity to simply move that sand east of First Street. If we wanted to circle back onto First Street, we'd have to first certainly understand the legalities of a closed road and seek legal input on whether or not we could occupy First Street again as a closed loop, as well as get confirmation from Baylock as well through that process, as it is part of the agreement of purchase and sale. So right now, I would say we're about in the vicinity of Playland parking lot.
Thank you, Kevin. Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship, for a follow-up. Obviously, we haven't been fully made aware in regards to the finalization of the sale and of that deal. If it isn't finalized, and there is opportunity to be able to bring it to First Street, you know, one thing I feel that as a council, we clearly heard from the community is that they do want access to Beach Drive again, and I feel also too from an emergency services perspective, it's obviously very important for fire prevention and safety. So if the deal is not finalized and we don't have an approved permit and for that development, is there an opportunity to then be able to open it up to First Street? Thank you.
Yes, certainly the due diligence period remains in place and extends until mid-December. So we have no indication, certainly from council, on that matter. But provided, you know, we can open up First Street and we have advice to permit that opening and a bylaw passage to allow the vehicular traffic on First Street again, we could certainly do that. The one challenge is if we don't have the permit from Ontario Parks as soon as we'd like to see it, there is that section of sand that then would have to be hauled off site. And that's where, you know, historically we've wanted to replenish the beach with the clean beach sand, which it is. As you know, it's a relic beach and it's a finite resource. And we have always wanted to promote the replacement and the deposition of that sand back on the beach, and that would certainly be our recommendation. But as we move through the permitting process, we're hopeful we can get it open as soon as we can.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions or comments? Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, my only concern with opening up First Street again is it could be unnecessary. And if we open it up and then have to close it back down for the terms of the sale, I just wouldn't want to have to pay to have work done twice, I guess is my point.
Thank you, Councillor. Kevin, can you maybe just give us a brief understanding of what the work would be involved if that was the case?
I think first and foremost, our goal is to clear the entire beach drive and get that sand displaced back onto the beach. So that is our priority. Like I said, in order for us to get as far as First Street, we would need legal advice on how we would go about redesignating that road that was stopped up and closed and deemed surplus through bylaw. So there's a bylaw process we'd have to do to reinstate that, not to mention the legalities between the agreement of purchase and sale that included that road allowance. So those, I don't have those answers without legal advice on that matter. But again, our goal is to get the permit as soon as we can, mobilize and move that material so we can get right through to 3rd Street.
Councillor Belanger?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I guess as a follow-up to Councillor White's comment, I too believe that the community made it very clear that they want it opened up. With that said, I think that it's much more critical in certain seasons of the year than it is in the upcoming dead of winter. So I believe that if the public know that we are taking the steps to open it to 3rd Street, and if that takes a little bit of time to accomplish, and that is the most cost-effective way to do it, that I would certainly support a short delay, and I believe our community would be satisfied that we're moving forward on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? All right, I would suggest that, Kevin, you're going to be in close contact with the ministry on this, and you'll inform us as soon as you have the good news. All right, so we do have a motion resolved that council directs the staff report on the requirements involved in to reopen Beach Drive. Any other questions or comments on this? All right, we'll wait to hear back from our director then. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? Opposed? None. That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Kevin. All right, moving on to item 5.3, Truth Corner. Resolved that council directs staff to eliminate Truth Corner. Questions or comments on this matter? All right. Councillor White?
Yes, Your Worship. Just thank you for this motion. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just believe that the perception of Truth Corner is that there's a particular spot you need to go for truth and transparency. I would say that this council wants the public to be very aware that that is our mandate across all communication, and so again, it's more from the perspective of that there's only one spot to go. It needs to be in everything we do, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? I couldn't agree more. So we have a motion resolved. The council directs staff to eliminate Truth Corner. All in, a mover or a seconder. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Timms. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 5.4, whistleblower policy. Resolved that council directs staff to bring forward amendments to the whistleblower policy to ensure a robust policy administered by an external agency. Questions or comments on this? Councillor Belanger?
Yes, I think both the public and staff know that I had brought this motion originally to council to have staff research and bring forward a robust whistleblower policy. When that did come forward, I voted opposed because I did not feel the recommendation went far enough. And so we're looking for to ensure that every member of our staff, if they have any concern about your council and the integrity of this council, that you feel empowered to take whatever steps necessary to raise the red flags, to bring it forward. Because we don't want any doubt in the mind of our staff or our public that we will do and make every decision to the greater good of our community. So I am very much in favor of this. I would just add that if it could be determined who is responsible for that, I would provide some information, as we do have one person that is quite expertise in these matters that has recently become a resident of Wasaga Beach, and it should be possibly a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? I just have a comment that I think I couldn't agree more that this is a very important policy that we get right the first time out of the gate. I can tell you that I have the utmost respect for all of our employees in this organization. You folks work hard, and we appreciate it. And it's important that we ensure, as a council, that you, as the stewards of making sure that this ship is empowered and is moving in the right direction at all times, are comfortable and feel safe and comfortable with what you do. So this council does appreciate all you do, and having said that, we'll now read the motion one more time. Resolved that council directs staff to bring forward amendments to the whistleblower policy to ensure a robust policy administered by an external agency. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 5.5, non-disclosure agreements. Resolved that council directs staff to bring forward a report including legal advice on removing the requirement for non-disclosure agreements in cases of harassment. And I'm just going to note there that we should add sexual harassment as well, please, Madam Clerk. Questions or comments on this matter? Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I thought about this a lot over the last 24 hours, and I just want to make sure that when we go through this process, we make sure that we protect any victims in this case, and the fact that if any agreements are made or if any actions do happen that result in some sort of action with the town, that if the victim wants things to be not disclosed, particularly their name or information withheld from the public so they can live in this small town, we make sure that we make plans for that as well, because I don't want to stifle anybody coming forward with a sexual harassment complaint because they know that their name is going to be made public.
Thank you, Councillor. Very good point. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's at the discretion of council, of course, but at least 2 provinces have already removed the utilization of non-disclosure agreements broadly, much more broadly than harassment. I think there are other situations where individuals may be requested to have a non-disclosure agreement because they have information or are expected to withhold information that could be important to the public. And at one point, I thought that maybe we should even look at retroactively eliminating the force of non-disclosure agreements. But that maybe as staff looks at non-disclosure agreements in general, they could research some of the trends that are happening in Canada and report that back to council as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? I'm assuming, Madam Clerk, you're hearing all this and you're making your notes to include these things?
Yes, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much. All right, resolved that council directs staff to bring forward a report including legal advice on removing the requirements of non-disclosure agreements in cases of harassment and sexual harassment. Can I have a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, second by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to 5.6, snow removal services. Resolved that council directs staff to bring forward a report on equipment, staffing, timing, and estimated cost to implement a driveway windrow snow clearing program. I know that myself and Kevin have had this discussion years ago. I'm sure he's confident in what it is that we're looking for. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Previously, it was my understanding that this technology was only available to graders. I believe since then it is technology that could be added to a plow truck. That could be significant in the reconsideration of this. The other thing that I would say is that given the timing of where we are right now and given the fact that we have a long way to go through the budgetary process, I think it's very realistic that the expectation to the public should be that it would not be this winter season that they would see any change in our snowplow policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand for this year it would be very difficult with the budget, but it will be implemented for next year? Like, will it be implemented?
Well, what we're asking for here, Councillor, is for staff to bring back a report that's going to give us all the information we require, including costs, and then council will have that further discussion and decide whether to move forward or not, or to what level or not.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, resolved that council direct staff to bring forward a report on the equipment, staffing, timing, and estimated costs to implement a driveway windrow snow clearing program. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor DeLeo, second by Councillor White. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to 5.7, delegated authority. Resolved that council direct staff to bring forward a report concerning all delegated authority currently in effect. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Belanger, second by Councillor Tim. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 5.8, Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act. Resolved that council directs staff to bring forward a comprehensive report on the implications of Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act. Questions or comments on this? Seeing Councillor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to indicate that on social media, from many municipalities, from many residents, from many organizations, and significantly from the county, there's been concern raised. So that is why council is making this a priority, and I believe the timelines for implementation are very tight. So I thank you for the motion. I think it's extremely important.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Eagle.
Sorry, yes, Your Worship. On this, I believe the importance of it, and I do trust that we will have an education and tutorials and gain more knowledge on what these rules will impact and where a town could go in the future, and what rights we will have. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? All right, you've heard the question. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor Timms. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to beachfront sale and development 5.9, resolved that staff bring forward reports concerning the beachfront sale and development. Questions or comments on this matter? Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am really looking forward to seeing what exactly transpired in regards to the beachfront sale, and I'm looking forward to a deep dive report from staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would this include closed sessions, notes and recordings?
I'm sorry?
Would this report include closed sessions, reports, or recordings?
Yes, council will be made aware of any and all correspondence or anything to do with, we need to be brought up to speed completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to call on Doug. I see you raised your hand. Come on up and join us, Doug. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, Council. The staff have scheduled a full afternoon in closed session, orientation session for Council, and that is scheduled for this Thursday, starting at 1 p.m. We have assembled all of the consulting team to come and provide staff with that background. Given the complexity of the negotiations and the whole process, we've chosen to provide you with a linear explanation of the history of the RFOEI, Request for Expressions of Interest, right through to the RFP, the analysis of the RFP, right up into negotiations as they are occurring currently. Through the advice of our solicitors, in order to guarantee negotiations in good faith, pretty much all of the negotiation materials that have been shared with Council have been done in camera, and the advice of the legal team is to continue to do that. So this session coming up on Thursday is fully in camera. My hope is that potentially we could adjust, make a friendly amendment to the resolution such that rather than staff bring a written report forward, that the full information that we provide through the PowerPoint and the consultants on Thursday afternoon would suffice to bring you up to speed. There's a great deal of information and matter to share with the council. I suspect that there will be many follow-on questions that we'll have to report back to you with even more detail. So there we have it.
Thank you very much, Doug. I think council understands completely that this would all be in closed session to, in order to ensure that the deal is dealt with on a fair and unbiased manner, and that, you know, it's just the way life works. It's the way it is. Certainly, this council, I'm confident, will bring the public up to speed when the time is right, but until then, it will be and remain in camera, no doubt. So I understand and agree on that friendly amendment. Madam Clerk, do you want to read us a new amendment with that, or sorry, a new resolution with that amendment?
We certainly can, Your Worship. In this motion, reports is meant to mean reporting to council in any format. And that's typically what, it doesn't mean that it's a written report. It could be verbal, it could be in a presentation. But we can certainly clarify that in the motion by stating that resolve that staff bring forward all the information concerning the beachfront sale and development.
Happy with that, Doug? All right, so any other questions or comments? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder. You've heard the question. Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to 5.10. Thank you, Doug. Twin Pad Arena Library Construction Steering Committee resolved that council directs the membership of the Twin Pad Arena Library Construction Steering Committee to include the Director of Building and Development Standards and Chief Building Official, CBO, and Director of Library Services, the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, effective immediately. Questions or comments? Seeing none, you've heard, Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question, just as discussed in regards to the beachfront sale and development. Will we, as council, be receiving an in-depth report as well in regards to the status of the Twin Pad Arena, as well as the budget and expected timelines? Same sort of detailed report, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'm quite confident that staff is going to bring council up to speed on anything and everything. Yeah. All right. Councillor Belanger, with respect to 5.10.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just with the addition of our building department manager, I would request that the report include the possibilities of moving more towards a net zero build, and whether or not that potentially could offer us opportunity for grant money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll have to put that forward at a later date in a different motion. This motion is strictly to add Pam and Danny to the committee. All right, any other questions or comments? Just a comment that I think it'll be great to see our librarian back on the committee, since it is a library and an arena that we're building, and I think it's excellent that we're going to add the chief building official who ought to know a little bit about building to that committee as well. You've heard the question, a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to 5.11, advisory committees. Resolved that council directs staff to report back with the terms of reference for the following new committees: High School Task Force Committee, Selection Committee for Advisory Committees, Environmental Advisory Committee, and Wasaga Beach Affordable Housing Task Force Committee. Questions or comments on this? Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was hoping to see an Economic Development Advisory Committee and an opportunity perhaps to add arts and culture to the Tourism Advisory Committee.
All right. Councillor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I believe that there is still consideration to look at all standing committees, and that there's an opportunity that some could be merged. So I believe that to Councillor Tim's question or recommendation, I think that is something that that council can look at, but I think it may involve some other committees that already exist, so
Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with what Councillor Belanger is suggesting with merging arts and culture into tourism, but I feel strongly that economic development requires an advisory committee of its own.
All right, so I think, Madam Clerk, we can do a friendly amendment to this. Can you guide us through that?
Yes, Your Worship, I think we could add that staff review the current committees or bring back a review for council on all of our current committees for discussion and direction.
Does that sound reasonable to you, Councillor Timms?
Your Worship, so are you suggesting then that we will not be passing this motion until that transpires?
No, what I'm suggesting today is that we add to the motion, so currently, we will be looking to bring in some new terms of reference with the motion that was read, and a second part that we also bring back a review of our current committees for direction and discussion, so that council can get a sense of what the current committee structure is and give some direction on how they would like to see those committees going forward.
So to be clear, Councillor, at that point, we could add any newer committees again, or rejig current committees, join them together, whatever it is that council should decide. Good with that? Okay. All right, then, you've all heard the, sorry, Councillor Eagle? Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. I'm really happy to see, as the former school board trustee, to see that the high school task force is going to be resurrected. It is imperative that our elected trustee has support from this table and has a uniformed voice and action to help them move the ball forward in regards to getting a high school. They cannot work in isolation, and I feel that putting the high school task force back on, the focus of supporting that person in their role is absolutely imperative. So I'm very excited to see that on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Belanger?
thank you, Your Worship. I just want to point out to the public that the selection committee that is being recommended for appointments to our advisory boards and task forces is another effort to ensure that the public knows that there is not favoritism or, because in the past, historically, this has been not in all terms of council, but has been often at the discretion of the mayor. And what we hope to do with the selection committee is to find the best possible volunteers within our community with related experience so that these committees can be extremely effective in supporting council in improving our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Eagle?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Councillor Belanger, for raising that, because it's what's in my mind, and this may not be the correct form to
Excuse me, Councillor
Ask
Eagle,
it.
if you would just move your mic closer to you. Just move the whole thing, because it's
How's that?
a little bit more. If it's flashing, it's not getting you. Bring the whole machine forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so this may not be the correct form. However, I've been curious how the process works, in that I've met many people out, especially campaigning, that are interested in being on committees, or we think could. How does it work? They fill an application, so I'll ask you the question. Thank you.
Absolutely, Councillor Eagle, through you, Your Worship. We have an appointment policy for advisory committees, and it does say that the mayor recommends to council. What the clerk's department does is advertise for open positions, collects the applications that come forward. We review them, with the correct department or with the department where that committee is home to. For example, in my department, I'm responsible for the health and safety, the Historical Advisory Committee and Accessibility Committee. And so I would look at those applications, and then we would put them forward to the mayor. And the mayor would review them, and then they would come to council for a recommendation.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to suggest that when these terms of references are made available, or when we're ready to start filling these committee positions, that we have an information session so members of the public can come in and learn about the committees and understand what they would be signing up for, maybe to inspire a little enthusiasm as well.
Excellent idea. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Councillor Timms, I'd also recommend that perhaps you speak with the clerk at some point in the next couple of days and just give the clerk an idea as to what you're thinking with respect to the Economic Development Committee. It's obviously near and dear to your heart, so I think that would help, may help as well. All right, you've all heard the question. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Timms, seconded by Councillor Ego. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 5.12, Indemnification Bylaw 2020-25, resolved that council directs staff to bring a bylaw forward to repeal Indemnification Bylaw 2020-25. Madam Clerk?
Your Worship, if I may suggest that as part of this item that we have a closed session discussion as well.
All right, any questions or comments on going into closed session? All right, seeing none, do we have a closed session resolution?
Your Worship, it fits within the exemptions that are currently in the closed session motion.
All right, for the first in camera? All right then.
6.1, yes.
So resolved that Section 239(2)A and B of the Municipal Act 2001 is amended. The next portion of the November 16th, 2022 special council meeting will move into closed session to discuss issues with respect to the indemnification bylaw and receive information from staff. Any questions or comments? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
And your worship, we're live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I'll just do a quick report on this closed session. We went into closed session to speak about an identifiable individual and some legal matters. We've had those discussions. We have a couple of resolutions for staff. The first one being that it was resolved that council confirm the direction provided in closed session to the treasurer and clerk pertaining to an indemnification matter. Questions or comments? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor DeLeo, second by Councillor Timms. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. And moving on to 5.12, the indemnification bylaw, resolved that council directs staff to bring a bylaw forward to repeal indemnification bylaw 2020-25. Mover and a seconder for this bylaw. Moved by Councillor DeLeo, second by Councillor Ego. All in favor? You have a question, Councillor? Yeah, sorry, the question's been called. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't see you there. All right, moving on to 6.1, closed session. I think we've been there, so we'll move past that to item number 7, reports from closed session. We've done those as well. 7.1, corporate records matter, section 239. That council confirm the direction provided. We've done that. Number 8, bylaws and confirmatory bylaws. Woohoo. 2022-78, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at its special meeting held Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. Resolve that bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at its special meeting held November 16, 2022 be received and to be deemed to have read a first, second, and third time, passed in number 2278. Questions or comments? So mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor DeLeo, second by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? That motion is carried and this meeting is adjourned.